Welcome to MUN 101. This is our introduction to Model United Nations, an introduction to diplomacy with skills. And I'd say some of the things that we use here are very useful in class, not just when teaching Model UN, but when teaching English and other activities that can be work to engage students, which is, I guess, one of the big reasons that we're here, is to get our students more comfortable with speaking in class.
Thank you, Daniel. My name is Jason, and I will be providing public speaking opportunities for use within Model UN. And back to you, Daniel.
Okay, so Model UN, for those who haven't heard of this activity before, it's been around for decades as a simulation of UN activity. Specifically, Model UN is working together to solve global issues. That's the purpose of getting students to work together to solve global issues. So what we're going to learn about in this short lesson is first about the United Nations. We're going to learn about Model UN. We're going to research a short topic together, and then we're going to practice the Model UN procedure, which is first caucusing, which is discussion in a legal like parliamentary format, and then voting, where we're going to vote on the actual issues. So
thank you, Daniel. One thing that I'd like to also add is the topic can be interchanged for diplomacy topics, current event topics, philosophy topics, history topics, current events, and they provide a great outline for public speaking activities. So thanks, Daniel. Back to you.
Okay, so the first thing with Model UN, and this is something which is evident for many students, is introducing what is the United Nations. What do they even do? And it's surprising many students haven't heard of the UN, and if they have, it was in a very limited context. Like, you may have heard of the World Health Organization or the Security Council, but it's not really part of day-to-day life. So the quick brief that we give is that the UN first was created in 1945, after the Second World War, to maintain peace and international cooperation. And the UN works through organizations like the World Health Organization, the World Food Program, the Environmental Program, and many more. And this is one of the first things that I clarify, is that the UN is not a UN, like a giant, organization which does everything. It has different committees that specialize. So it's not what does the UN do, it's what a specific part of the UN do. And it makes it a lot easier for students when you say, okay, what does the World Health Organization do? So what does the World Health Organization deal with? Health. What does the World Food Program deal with? Food. So it's usually in the name. And that already makes it more easily. And I don't know what the UN does, because when you look for the UN online, there's a lot of reading in English and a lot of text on the endless internet. So to make it accessible, it's that the UN does many things with organizations that specialize, and that is their mandate. That is what they do.
Thank you, Daniel. I'd like to add that, could you go back one slide?
Yes.
One of the things we like to start with in public speaking is why. So starting with why. Why is there a Model UN? There is a Model UN to help solve global issues. And that's a great way to start any speech. And I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to say, we can see here that the UN was founded to keep peace and to cooperate with people. That's the why of the Model UN, and the different agencies on the next slide. The different agencies are what the UN does. So in the name, they're answering what they do. Next slide, and back to you, Daniel.
So the next thing I show students, and this slideshow, by the way, will be available to everyone if you would like to use it with your students, is this map of the world, the United Nations worldwide operations. And I go through it as follows. First, I tell the students, like, it doesn't really matter what these little colors or marks are. Each thing indicates some form of UN activity. Specifically, the red dots are the headquarters, and all the others are different types of UN operations, whether it's a World Bank loan or a peacekeeping troop or a global development learning network. And the question that I ask students is, where is the United Nations not, if we look at this map? So I'm opening it to all of you here. Where is the UN not? Open your microphone and say.
In the
It
US.
it doesn't
Not in
seem
the
to fill
United
up.
States. Very good. Where else?
North America at all, altogether.
Not in North
Canada.
America. Excellent. Not in Canada. Good. Where else?
Not so much
Australia?
Australia.
Not in Australia. Good. There's no UN in Australia. By the way, the red dots are headquarters. So the UN really doesn't, except for headquarters, they don't have an operation in North America. Excellent. Not in Australia. Where else are they not?
Not New Zealand.
Not in New Zealand.
North of Russia, actually.
Yep, northern Russia, very good. No significant activity in the north of Asia. Where else?
No
And,
Antarctica.
Norway. What is it there? Norway. It looks like only the headquarters are there.
Very good. Central and Western Europe seems to only have headquarters, so there's no UN operations there. And what other part of the world do we see comparatively little UN operation? Seems to be more spread out. In the north of Africa. See, there's less there, sort of like in Asia. So, and then we think, okay, let's look at the map as we know it. What is the weather like in the north of Russia?
Snowy.
Arctic.
Yeah, snowy Arctic, very
Icy.
very cold. So not a lot of people there. And what natural, I guess, entity do we have in the north of Africa?
You mean desert?
Desert. Which desert? What desert is there?
The Sahara,
The
probably.
Sahara Desert. Excellent. So we can see that where the world is in its coldest area, and in the Sahara Desert, there's no UN activity, but there's also no people there. And there's no UN activity in the world's most developed countries. So these are places where UN is not part of people's day-to-day life, but in everywhere else, the UN is present at least in some form, whether they're giving aid, whether they're helping with medicines, building infrastructure, education, and so on. So just because we don't see the UN as part of our day-to-day lives, I tell students, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist out there dealing with many different and important things. So this is the introduction to the United Nations and their activity. Jason, do you want to add something?
No, thank you. I'll let you know when I do.
Excellent. Okay, so then we move on to Model UN. Like this is really, it's the United Nations in 3 slides. That's it. Just to understand there's a big organization which deals with many things all over the world. We may not have encountered it yet, but it's there. Next is introduction to Model United Nations. So what is this activity? So Model UN is an activity where the students will represent a diplomat, research the position of their country on the specific topic, present your ideas through speeches, create a group to write down the ideas. If they're not written, they can't be voted on. It needs to move from speech to writing, and then pass the written ideas with a majority vote. So breaking it down to 5 words: research, speak, group, write, vote. After doing Model UN for years and years, I was able to like boil it down to these 5 words. So this is the activity that we are going to be teaching the students for Model UN. To get a topic, learn to research it. Yeah, Jason?
Of course, public speaking is a type of persuasive speech, and primarily convincing people to vote for your ideas and support your ideas is done through persuasive speeches and public speeches. And we're going to be learning different dissections of public speaking. So thank you, Daniel. Back to you.
So when we're thinking of, by the way, Model UN could be seen in some ways as one of the most, I'd say, pure forms of persuasive speech activities, because each student in the end has a vote as the country they represent. And someone needs to convince them to give their vote. And you can't do it in, detached, speeches. It actually involves individual persuasion. And I've seen students bribe each other with chocolate, as well as, diplomatic concessions. because then this is really something which is so empowering for students. Even if they don't speak, their vote is still their vote. They choose, are they supporting their friends or someone else? That's up to them. So that's something which is really special and unique about this activity. So what does Model UN look like? Model UN in person, you can see students speaking on a podium, but also in the group section, everyone gets out of their seats, talks, and works independently. They crowd around laptops to write, and then they vote, whether it's a classroom of 10 or an auditorium of 200. And every vote is needed. In some of the larger simulations, I took part in a simulation of 400 participants. We needed a simple majority. So we needed, in that case, over 200 of the participants, or I guess it was doubles. So it was like 200 countries. We needed over 100 to vote for us to pass the topic, which is not an easy process at all. MUN Online also, something which developed over the past 2 years. I mean, it existed before, but really came into its own as an excellent way for students to meet participants from other countries and to simulate Model UN without having to fly elsewhere or go through any of the steps that would normally happen to take part in an international delegation. Okay, so that's Model UN in a nutshell, what the UN is and what Model UN is. And now I'd like us to already step into what we're going to be simulating together with ourselves. So research. When preparing for MUN for the intro drill, and the reason it's done like this is because we could bring a lot more information on the UN. I think everyone here knows at least a little more about the UN than we showed here. But we want to get our students speaking as fast as possible. We'd like them to engage with this activity and see that it is fun, because when they hear of United Nations, committees, diplomacy, all these big multi-syllable words, they go, oh no, this is going to be not a fun activity. And this is actually a really fun and engaging activity. We want to get them there as quickly as possible. And I do this with students that I have from fifth, sixth grade, all the way to university students. You want them speaking as quickly as possible and understand it's not about large amounts of reading or writing or things that you do get there eventually, but from a place of joy. So MUN research has 3 parts: country, committee, and topic. So for this, I'd like everyone now to work with me. Can everyone please choose a country that they like and change their name to their country? The way that you do this on Zoom is you click the 3 dots and then you click rename. So if everyone can pick a country, add a country before your name. Okay, so please take country and then keep your name, because we will be using our names later. So if anyone
Thank you, Daniel. In the classroom setting, this activity is best done in a het formation, in a horseshoe, where everyone can sit facing everyone else's face towards the front of the room, as well as having in the in-person version, everyone has a placard, a piece of paper that's folded in half that sits with their country's name visible for everyone to see. It's like a name card. It's very important to know what country other people are so you can call them. That ties into a game that we like to play. It's called Code Name, where in public speaking or Model UN, you'll assign everyone a different variable and refer to them as that. So in Model UN, it's country, but it could also be city or favorite literature type, like fiction, nonfiction.
I'm sorry, I got muted by accident.
And so code names, this is a variation of code names, which has a lot of classroom applications. In this case, in Model UN, it's done by country name. And it's also very helpful to consider adding your first name. So thank you, Daniel.
All right, wonderful. So thank you everyone for changing your names. Again, I request that you put your name before your country, before your name. That helps the Zoom in this case automatically make it alphabetical. So thank you, South Africa. Thank you, Brazil. Thank you, Australia. Thank you, Egypt. Thank you, Israel. Thank you, France. Thank you, Italy, Kenya.
Where can I find my picture again from the Zoom?
Just tell me the country you want. Jason or I will change it for you.
USA.
I think we already have USA.
We-
We'll give you another one.
Britain.
Okay, United Kingdom, fine. So if you see someone else with your country, just change it. I suggest take the most obscure country you can think of. We're not holding anyone to the opinions of that country. It's just that we're able to use code names for this purpose. And code names really works very well in classroom settings. The student no longer is representing their name. Now they're representing either a country or a book that they like. You say, pick a title of your favorite book, pick the most important word in the title. And these things sort of break the flow. Okay, so we have
like an icebreaker. It's a very good icebreaker activity to use code names. It helps people call on people who they might not mention by name, and it gives confidence to people to represent. Sometimes it's easier to represent other people than it is to represent ourselves. So to help get confidence in practice, having these code names help students participate in a less personal and exposed sort of way. MUN research has three parts: country, committee, and topic. When we get really into it, the country has a lot of specific policies and specific interests depending on what type of government they have. But in a classroom setting, we don't need to hold people too particular to the country. The committee is what we're talking about. Is it the food committee, the health committee, the space committee? And of course, the topic is the specific thing that we're talking about. The topic could be, in this case, we're going to discuss 240,000 tons of food aid, which is enough food for 1 million people for a year. It's a great topic. It asks a lot of really interesting questions about our values, about society's values, about what's practical, and about why countries would participate in making gifts to other countries. So our topic is, should we give 240,000 tons of food aid to North Korea? That's enough food, again, for 1 million people for 1 year. So it's a very good fact to introduce. It's also a very simple way to remember this activity, as getting people to talk about what to do with enough food for a year. Back to you, Daniel.
All right, so what we can see here, so this is already getting us in the mindset for the topic, and see how quickly we moved from talking about the United Nations and this background to getting into our topic. So once you give out countries to everyone, the country is us. You are the country you are. The committee is the World Food Program, and our topic we're going to get to in a second. The World Food Program is responsible for delivering food assistance in emergencies. That's what they do, sort of what we figured they do. And then we move on
and
to...
I'm so glad we talked about what we're doing, because our topic is to talk about how we're going to do it. We talked about why we're doing what we're doing. We talked about what we're doing. And our job as participants is how we're going to achieve this mission. So we want to help people who are suffering food insecurity. How do we help them? Do we send ships? Do we send planes? Do we send people? And that's the diplomatic language that we're going to learn how to allocate.
Okay,
So Daniel,
going over the scenario. The story is food aid. I should have somebody read. Let's see. Noga, can you read?
Yes, the story, food aid intended for North Korea, from the United Nations World Food Program, was halted last month when North Korea launched an intercontinental ballistic rocket.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much, Noga. One thing that does not work well online is group reading, but if you're in a live classroom, this is my favorite activity for group participation to get everybody involved. It's to read at the same time. So as an educator, just like Noga did, I would read the paragraph out loud, and then I would say, students, read it all out loud together with me. All 20 of you together, read together, follow my lead. Food aid intended for North Korea. And then you'll be surprised, but you can hear who's not participating. Students can hear the other students pronouncing the words. They don't feel like they're on the spot. It develops a certain rhythm to it. It's often called choral reading, and it really does not work well online. Like if we all try to open our mics and read together, it's either gonna really distort badly on the microphones, and it just doesn't work. But in person, one of our favorite drills, and you can do this with 2 students, you can do this with 50 students, as long as they can all read, is to have them read it out loud even a couple times. It really helps their confidence, it helps their pronunciation, and every second that they're talking is a second of participation, is a second of engagement and practice. It's tangible. So thank you, Daniel, thank you, Yoga, and back to the story.
So when we do this for the students, there are some words, depending on the English level, some of them aren't sure what an intercontinental ballistic missile is. So we added some pictures. So one here we can see, here's North Korea. Here's a boat of food. A missile was tested. So the question is, should we still send the food? That's our question of the day. We bring a bit of background information. 240,000 tons, enough to feed 1 million people for a year, like what Jason said. We're the World Food Program. We should decide, are we still sending the food? Are we now going to give conditions, or are we going to send the food to somewhere else? We show a map of the area showing that North Korea is right next to Russia and China, and near South Korea and Japan. We show 500 kilometers, that it's pretty close in the region. There's a bit of background information on North Korea having a food shortage, and so far at least 2 in 5 people are undernourished.
I'll read this part. So why are we bringing North Korea into this topic? And it's because North Korea has a real history with these issues. North Korea has a real history, a recent history of famine. In the mid-1990s, out of 22 million people, 2 million of them died of starvation, not having enough food, not having enough rice, they were eating grass, they were eating leather, they were doing things you do to prevent from starving, and they still died. To this day, about 40% of North Koreans are malnourished. That's gotten worse in the past year with Corona, to the point where, I think it's an upcoming slide, Kim Jong-un has recently reached out to the world community to send food because of the unstable conditions that the coronavirus caused, including in North Korea. So that number's probably actually gone up. Can you take the next slide?
Yes.
So another thing about North Korea, it's in a very small group of countries that have nuclear weapons or even nuclear programs. Most of these countries are huge: United States, Russia, China, France, United Kingdom, Pakistan, North Korea, and maybe Israel. None of them are as poor as North Korea. And North Korea insists it has the right to develop nuclear weapons, just like other leading countries in the world, even though it comes at the expense of potentially feeding its own people. But it's an interesting question we have to consider. Does North Korea have the right? Like, what gives a country the right to have nuclear weapons? It's an interesting question. So next slide, please. North Korea has a recent history of nuclear and weapons testing. In the past 15 years, there have been multiple missile launches, multiple nuclear tests, multiple provocative acts. Here's a list of them. They're getting better at making nukes. They're more powerful missiles. They're longer range. They test them. They shoot them actually to the east. They shoot them east over Japan, or is that west? I'm not sure. North Korean missiles, they fly over Japan. Japan is quite upset about this. Next slide, please. So here's a statement from Ri Sung-gwan. We have the right to develop nuclear weapons if we want. We also have the right to life, food, and decency and respect. We ask the global community to trust us and send us the food as planned. And as I mentioned recently, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has made a similar request. I see that Australia has their hand up. Australia, would you like to ask a question?
Let's finish the slides and then we'll do.
Very good. We're going to come back to that question.
So it's a global crisis. And the last slide that we have to sort of remind, because we just took in a lot of information very quickly, is our task again, which, let's see. Ariana, can you read the task? Just unmute.
Sorry, yeah. Should we, the United Nations World Food Programme, send 240,000 tons of food aid to the people of North Korea? If so, which conditions? If not, who should get the food instead?
Excellent. So this is the question we have, and we see how quickly we got through this entire slideshow. It's built to give the information pretty quickly to begin discussion. And now we're going to start caucusing, which is the discussion between our participants. So the first, so I would start it off asking, is there anyone who would like to start discussing?
Well, I
and
guess
state their opinion?
I would like to answer that question. So this is the caucus game, and we're gonna still continue the interactive part, and we're gonna invite some of our teachers, you educators, to participate on the live stream and to create a scenario that we can reference later. You don't have to participate during this part, and we're going to come back after break, which we're going to start in between 5 to 10 minutes to do our breakout rooms by public speaking or by Model UN. So can we have a volunteer who would like to answer the question of what should we do? Where should it go? The 240,000 tons of food. Who would like to make a suggestion about where the food should go? Please raise your hand. Please raise your hand if you'd like to participate in the live section. Okay, we're going to start with the UK. UK, no. Would you please?
Hi, I would like the food to go to North Korea because the people are really not guilty with their government activities. But I would send the food with some conditions.
All right, what would those conditions be?
I would monitor the activity of the nuclear activities that the government has. Limit it to somewhat, or have some people overview and see what they're doing.
Wonderful. Overview of the nuclear weapons. Excellent. Who would you like to hear from next?
United States.
United States. All right, let's hear United States.
Hi. So as a country who cares for the poor and for the hungry, I would like for the food to go to the hungry people in North Korea, and I would like it to be monitored so that we make sure that it actually reaches all the people and not the leaders, and that's what I think at this point.
Excellent. Now, let's say, okay, so excellent conditions. We do monitor reaches the people. USA, if North Korea do not agree to have these observers, who should get the food, in your opinion? Could be any country.
Any country? Well, then I'd be happy for it to go to my people, my hungry people in Israel, who will gladly appreciate that.
Okay, so if North Korea do not agree to the conditions, the food goes to Israel. All right,
Yes.
Wonderful. United States, who would you like to hear from next?
I saw India had their hand up. I saw India had their hand up.
So United
India.
States, you choose India?
Yes.
I can't find where to raise hand.
Hi. Oh, I think it's reactions with the smiley.
All right, India.
Hi. Okay. So I think the conditions that are proposed, when you say monitoring, I just want to clarify that the monitoring is for the delivering of the food. And I don't know if we necessarily have the resources to have police officers checking their nuclear development. I'm more concerned about getting the food directly to the people who need it, and I just wanted to clarify about what we mean when we say monitoring.
Can I reply?
No, we're passing it on. Well, I guess India. Who do you wait? So first of all, India. Who should get the food in your opinion?
I think that the poor people of North Korea should get the food without conditions. Well, the only condition I would put is that
You can say without conditions.
the only condition I would put, if it's considered to be a condition, is to have a UN body actually on the ground, making sure that the food reaches its destination, but no political conditions, nothing
Okay,
having to
but
do with
if-
where
let's say North Korea say no UN body at all. Where would you want the food to go instead?
Okay, so if they don't allow UN body, I would send it to, Africa is a continent.
Good.
Right.
Maybe the poorest countries in the world, maybe war-torn countries, maybe poor people in
Right, Nigeria, India, unfortunately.
Okay, so you can split between Nigeria and India. Wonderful.
Okay, fair enough.
That's good. India, who do you want to hear from next?
Let's see
raising
here.
her
Do I
hand.
need to choose someone who's raising their hand?
You can choose whoever you want, but Turkey is raising her hand.
Oh, okay. Let's hear from Turkey.
All right, Turkey, you have been chosen by India. You have the floor.
Hi. So Turkey has had international recognition for its response in providing a non-camp solution to the arrival of refugees. It has been consistently generous in its support to refugees, providing them with legal status, social protection, and access to basic public services, and they need food. And so I think that Turkey is most deserving for these poor people who have no house and no shelter. And Turkey has been welcoming them, but needs all the support it can get in actually feeding these people. So I think that the food should go to Turkey.
Okay, so Turkey wants to take the food to Turkey. Excellent. Very good. So see, it's not even a condition. Turkey's like, Turkey should be getting the food. All right, Turkey, who do you want to hear from next? I see Syria is raising his hand.
Syria.
All right, Syria, you have the floor.
Thank you, honorable delegate from Turkey. Honorable delegates of the World Food Program, please, my people, my war-torn country, my people are starving. Send us the food. Our country of 26 million has been besieged by civil war against terrorists and rebels who have killed so many of our people who are now living in refugee camps, going through a cold and dark winter. 1 out of 5 people in my country has been displaced. Help us. Send us the food. We're a peaceful people. We don't do any violence to our neighbors. We don't threaten other countries like North Korea. We're not a big, powerful country like Turkey. And the USA has so much money. Why do they need the food? Please help the people of Syria and send us all of the food with any conditions you want, because you can trust us to not develop weapons of mass destruction. Thank you very much, honorable delegates. I know you'll do the right thing and send the food to Syria. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Syria. Who do you want to hear from next?
Who would like to be called upon next? Would anybody
Netherlands
like
seems to want to speak.
Netherlands, over to the Netherlands. Thank you.
All right,
very much.
Netherlands, you have the floor. You're on mute, though. Netherlands, you're on mute.
I say that I'm a bit sick, so my voice is not, it's not the same. I have a very serious cold. I want the food to reach to Sudan and the very poor places in Africa where little kids, boys and girls, sell themselves to prostitutes for food. I saw a TV show, a TV program on this subject like a year and a half ago. And I keep thinking about those kids, about those little girls, 10 years old, 9 years old, a place with no love, they have to sell themselves. They have to sleep with men, in order to get food for every day, right? So I think it's
So the
We
food should
should
go to the
there.
Sudan instead.
And that areas. This is
Wonderful.
terrible.
Okay, thank you, Netherlands. Who do you want to hear from next? I think we'll take one more country. Choose whichever country you would like. If anyone wants to volunteer and raise their hand, Netherlands can see you, but
Okay.
Netherlands, pick a country. Who do you want to hear from next? They're waiting for you to choose.
Okay. Let's see. And I can't see anybody. My God, I need to open the whole. My God, wait a minute. I'll open the whole.
Australia is interested.
Okay, Australia. I can't see her, but Sababa.
Okay. Australia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Australia would like to have the food for feeding their refugees. We have a large number of refugees that are stateless and require the support of the United Nations. I think that it would be a worthy cause, and Australia is known to be very compliant with all conditions of the United Nations.
Thank you very much, Australia. This was a really great simulation. The discussion portion that we've started now, we're going to continue in our private breakout groups after the break. The discussions that we had today are very similar to the discussions and the ideas that our students will bring up. We should encourage them to be creative. We should encourage them to have big, wacky ideas. We should encourage them to get specific and say thank you when they do. The head of a model UN room is called the chair. That's the person who knows the ideas and who knows the rules and keeps time and has a list. What we did is a scaled down entry-level version of Model UN called the caucus game. And if you'll remember, the speaker would choose the next speaker. That's a very important part of this drill, is that the speaker chooses the next speaker. It's good to encourage people to say thank you to the previous person for choosing them. Speaking is a privilege, something that we remind participants of, that it's only when you're getting your voice out there and speaking up that your ideas are going to be counted. We're going to break up into 2 breakout rooms after the break. There's going to be a Model United Nations Hishtalmut and a public speaking Hishtalmut. If this is not the first time you've seen me, you're in public speaking, and you should join my room after the break, which is going to be starting very soon. Actually, public speaking is just going to stay here. Model UN is going to go to the other breakout room. It's called Model UN Breakout, Model UN Nations Hishtalmut. Daniel, would you like to say anything before we go on break?
Yes.
I'll think of any final thoughts.
All right. So what we saw here, I want to point out a few important things that we saw. First was the fluidness of the activity. And like Jason said, we're going to be doing this a little bit more. But I want us to see how quickly we transitioned. And this doesn't have to be about world events or about Model UN, but you're able to take a topic, give a bit of background, and immediately move to the place where we're discussing it. And again, it needs to be 3 or 4 well-crafted slides, and the question of the topic needs to be a question with a clear, deliverable at the end. But once that's structured, we had like 7 of us jumping right into it, everyone nominated by someone else and able to speak. And this is the beauty of the caucus game. And first, that we have code names, we're much more comfortable calling out the name of a country or the other code name than with people. And people feel much more easy. Students feel more at ease speaking about these topics when they're not representing themselves anymore. It's sort of like, like invisibility glasses or some kind of, buffer. The next part is, and this is key from an educator perspective, it's not us picking the students anymore. It's them randomly picking each other. So now they're listening not just to our, wonderful sing-song voice, but they get to hear each other, and they never know when they're going to be volunteered next. And by doing that, we break the dynamic of a sage on stage, because the students, they know how to read us. They know our patterns of who we're going to call, and they have their ways to do that. But the second they're randomly being chosen by each other, it brings a new level of attention and engagement, which is why this activity is one that I use not just in Model UN, but in general. It's a really great one to do. You can even make the student the facilitator if you'd like. And through this, with the participant choosing the next speaker, really creates a more open and engaging dynamic. So with that, I want to say really great job jumping right into it to all of our countries who had pretty detailed opinions on the topic. Jason, you want to say anything before we take our break?
When we come back from break, we're going to be doing attendance housekeeping, sharing the links of where the slideshows can be found, answering questions about the course, the syllabus, going through and turning this into a exercise involving either public speaking or Model UN. We're going to go around the room and make sure everybody has a chance to participate. One thing we're going to pay strict attention to, whether it's public speaking or Model UN or any other activity, is to time our participation so that everybody has an amount of time to speak. We don't want shy or quiet students to be over talked by a loud, confident student who eats into the participation time of our quieter, more reserved students. But we also want to make sure that everyone gets an equal amount of time, so the loud student also will have like an equal amount of time. And when people interrupt during other people's turn, it's important that the facilitator says, "Excuse me, this is somebody else's time. Please don't take time from that person. You'll have time, an equal amount of time for your opinions." And that's very important, that people feel like there is an equal share and that their voice counts along with everyone else's. At the end of our conversational groups, we're going to take a little non-binding vote and see what country we think the food should go to. We'll probably meet back in one room at the very end of class and share the results of our breakout rooms and talk about the differences in the resolution for a couple minutes. And without further ado, I'm ready to take a 15-minute break until 5:15. What do you think?
I think we should take a vote on that. So everyone, we can have a 10-minute break or a 15-minute break. So everyone just pick your hand up in front of your faces. That should be sufficient. All in favor of a 10-minute break right now, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, 7, hands down. All in favor of a 15-minute break, please raise your hands. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. All right, 14 to 7. Wow, 17, 18. All right, the United Nations has spoken. Everyone, thank you for a great class. Let's take a break. We'll see everyone here at